So this is a show that's got everybody up in arms because it's an edgelord incel cringe fest, you know? I decided, hey, I'll go ahead and watch it, because, I watch everything anyway, so I had to give it a shot, and it was alright. It bothers people because it's got, the R word in it, that forced, coitus, if you know what I mean. But honestly, that's just the shock factor. The bad part of it is the garbage story that exists just so the author can feel like the forced coitus is totes justified. And we have to suffer through this garbage plot as a result that admittedly could have been pretty decent. And the show definitely has some interesting concepts, but to explain what it's about, if you haven't seen it, the show is about a dude who gets some wish from a lolly at the beginning for a special eye that doesn't come back into play a bit. I mean, she's pretty cute, but outside of Yasuharu Takanashi doing the OST, she was about the only thing that was interesting within like the first 15 minutes of the first episode. It was pretty boring outside of that, but regardless, after he gets this stupid eye, it flashes forward and he's with the party trying to defeat the demon lord, but the party is just pieces of shit for no real reason. We've known them for all of like a minute. Like, the characters have no depth and they're just evil because the author couldn't be bothered or isn't able to write compelling characters. They exist solely for the revenge prawn that happens later on. Yes, I said it that way because YouTube's, they don't like the word. But anyways, I'm apparently supposed to feel bad for the guy. But he has no character whatsoever, so I could honestly give less of a shit. And it turns out, by the way, that this is actually a flashback before he redid the world with the Philosopher's Stone that they got from the Demon Lord. So the stuff we saw in the beginning of the episode happens after what we're seeing now, at like 6 minutes in, which is stupidly and needlessly confusing. They could have just started with this, or better yet, they could have just spent several episodes on his life leading up to this point and the reset, and then spent the latter half of the show on the new reset world. But it's clear they just wanted to get to the Revenge Prawn. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's following the light novel to a T, since it seems like shittily written smut. Also, the guy has nipples, and that bothers me. Moving on, at this point, it's not terrible, but it could have been executed much, much better. And it could have spent more time in the previous world, as I already said. As the episode goes on, he keeps saying things like, oh, this person isn't here, so it'll be easier for me. Or, whoa, this guy's powerful, and it's like, yeah, I don't know or care because you didn't show me, so I don't give a shit. I mean, you barely even told me for that matter. You spent all of like 5 minutes, not even, you spent like 5 seconds saying it. But despite that, it seemed like it could have been competent enough and more than just an incel's wet dream if it had spent more time on the previous world, or, just had better writing. Also, there's like a random sex scene with a maid because he needs experience, or apparently because his spunk levels them up. It's pretty dumb, but it seems like it was mostly just added because the author was horny and they wanted brawn. But I will say the concept of predatory healing is still pretty neat. I mean, the concept of his healing in general is pretty neat. It's not something I've seen before, so I will give it that. Again, it has a good concept, but with awful execution and a shoddily written plot that goes along with it. But anyways, this is where the episode 1 pretty much ends. But it's episode 2 that people seem to take issue with, and I can see why, not because of the content in episode 2, but because absolutely nothing of interest happens in this show up to this point. Now, episode 2 is much in the same, in that it realizes that anybody with a brain isn't going to give a shit about the MC or the shitty people around him because we've known them for all of 2 episodes. Not even 2 episodes at this point. We've known them for like an episode, barely. And they're terribly written. It even introduces more shock factor of, oh, he got raped by both men and women, so you should feel sorry for him. When I could honestly give less of a fuck, because I barely know this dude. I mean, we fast forward through MC escaping, and we get to the torture part that I'm assuming most people take issue with. Now, this could have been tastefully done, but they rush towards this scene, towards this part, only including shock factor, forced coitus scenes, R-word scenes, to get you to care because they don't know how to write proper characters. It is literally just torture prawn with the next to no narrative behind it. And it's the same as if you were playing a prawn game and or a visual novel and you just skipped all the story and getting to know the characters in favor of just the H scenes, the prawn scenes. they end up being awful as a result because they're just still images with moaning and you have no attachment to the characters whatsoever. There's nothing to enhance the genericness of what you're seeing. You're literally just looking at a picture. Now, if you had watched it and it was enhanced by the fact that you know this character, it would have been a lot better. Like, think of the first time you went and read a doujin and it was about your favorite character from your favorite shonen anime at the time. Yeah, it was really great, and you liked it because it was about that character in a position you wouldn't normally see them in. But then when you just, read some random doujin and skipped the story straight to the kinky stuff, it didn't really do as much for you. Regardless, in the case of this show, you would honestly find better prawn by just watching a random gentai, as they call it here on YouTube. It's the same here. It doesn't work as a well-written story, it doesn't work as fetish fuel, and it doesn't work as actual gentai or prawn. It half-asses everything that it does, and the only area I can really compliment it on is its voice acting. Flair's VA nails it. Also, the fact that this is probably what Shield Hero was gunning for, but wimped out at the end of it. This is still somehow better than that garbage despite that, though. Just a public service announcement to not watch Shield Bro, because it's god-awful. Anyway, eventually we get to the end, where he's mind-warped her, and apparently face-warped her and himself too, but honestly they look exactly the same as they did before, with minor changes, but whatever, I guess. But he mind-warps her into thinking she's his girl, which is basically the incel part of this, where the loser dude mind-warps the mean old whammon into a submissive girl who begs for his junk. It's literally an incel's wet dream. He doesn't even just say, "You're my pack mule," or some shit now, but instead says, "No, we totes need to bang," because despite the fact that he just said he hates her and couldn't even get it up for her because he despised her so much, it just forgoes that it mentioned that not even 5 minutes ago in favor of this incel fantasy. All in all, it's really just poorly made edgelord incel torture prawn that had the potential to be decent at the very least, but it half-assed everything so it could go, "Look ma, I'm pushing boundaries too, just like interspecies reviewers." But in the process, it's a shit show just so it could rush to that presumed goal. Some people will watch this and say, "Well, Lady's bad, so I mean, isn't it a good thing that he's getting revenge? I mean, she's a bad person, she should be stopped." But then they just ignore the meta context behind it. The show was created by a person who is also apparently a woman, fun fact. But they, whatever, created the character to be like that. And that makes the author look like a dumb incel, hence my incel comments. It makes the show seem like an incel show, Like, it's fine to enjoy these things. I thought it was bad, but I also thought it was enjoyable because I'm a degenerate. But my point is that you can't just watch it and ignore all the context. Media is not created in a vacuum. So if you enjoy it, you have to acknowledge these things and not just spout shit like, "Well, the character deserves it," to justify the actions of another character, especially when the characters are so poorly written because they just wanted to get to the torture prawn as soon as possible. Like, God, they're god-awful. Like, I don't know shit about most of these characters, and I could get less of a shit. I literally could learn more about characters in a 23-page gentai doujin than I did in watching basically 40 minutes of content in this dumbass anime. But regardless, I'm a degenerate, and I watch everything. So I'm gonna enjoy it despite its obvious flaws and the fact that it's practically an incel's wet dream. So I'll keep up with the show, just to see the other cute girls and the ED do the nasty, because I'm not gonna lie to you, they're pretty damn cute. I didn't say the art and animation was bad. I mean, the animation in the fight scene was definitely serviceable. Like, I've definitely seen worse. This wasn't that bad. And like I said, they got Yasuharu Takanashi. He's a composer for Fairy Tail, composer for Shiki, composer for Naruto, and a bunch of other shows. He's really, really good, is my point. So like, when there are fight scenes, I know they're gonna have good damn music behind them, and the animation and art is pretty good for when they do the dirty. And like I said, the girls are pretty cute too, so yeah. But despite that, I wouldn't waste your time with it. Though I say that it's a waste of time unless they have more dick slapping scenes, because that happens in episode 2, and shit, that was friggin' hysterical. Like, I've never seen anything like that in anime before, and I don't know why, but it was really funny. I'm probably gonna make it the thumbnail. So, you know, look out for that, I guess. But anyways, that's all I've got, and I'll just go ahead and say this was also my first scripted video. And so if you actually watch the entire video, all the way to the end, let me know down in the comments below if you like this style of video or my usual rambling better. This one definitely took a little bit more time to create, despite the fact that I used very limited footage, because, well, yeah, I mean, should be obvious why I can't include a lot of the stuff that it shows here. But yeah, that's all I got. Like and subscribe. See you later.